I think since we're talking about all the workshops that we've conducted over the past year as well, we continue to have executive conversations. And really, the big elephant in the room always seems to have some common themes. Is our data really ready for what AI demands? And I guess if you don't have it, or we would collectively agree that you're not heading for innovation, you're really heading for a disaster at that point in time. So just like all the old days, if you remember, back in 2010, 2012, we used to say, well, let's implement agile, but you can be fragile very quickly. Or we would say at this point in time with AI is garbage in and intelligence accelerated in the wrong direction. But we also continue to hear a few other things as well, which is legacy systems hanging by a thread, so which increases a significant amount of risk. Integration, that nobody wants to own, that also contributes to that increased risk. And then we speak of pipelines. So if somebody, we're in cough and cold season, somebody coughs, just like a deer in the headlight, is what Jeff said, your pipeline absolutely breaks, and we have no idea what the undocumented code that there is in the organization that nobody understands. However, I think I would say is from a positive core perspective of adoption is the ultimate outcome in having employees use safe embedded AI solutions, which truly maximize your investment. So if you remember, we used to say, oh, data is the new currency, but now I think we collectively can say trust as the new currency. So the CEO is no longer looking at responsible AI. They're looking on all aspects of ethics, bias mitigation, security, and it's not really just a compliance checkbox, but it's really a revenue protector. So it's a significant strategic shift in that leadership mindset. So with that, how do you kind of manage that risk? So there's the whole view about risk identification and mitigation, but really it's the ethical AI policies at your organization, the regulatory adaptation. So with a global landscape with AI regulations tightening, the strategy has to include privacy by design. So that avoids costly legal setbacks, brand damage, but really, in summary, I think I would say is responsible AI shouldn't be viewed as a hurdle or a setback. It needs to be part of the rollout. So what does that give you? It not only mitigates risk for the business by accelerating adoption, it manages risk from data privacy breaches as well, reputational risk as well. But more importantly, I think the core aspect is it's establishing ethical practices that you're going to ensure your employees use safe solutions to maximize your AI investments. So Jeff, I'm going to hand it back to you. But as we as a team have been conducting all these workshops, what was your insights to risk as well?
I think I grabbed two. The first is a lot of times we think about risk and compliance. We think about things that are going to slow us down. And what we find is when you do this appropriately, it doesn't slow the process down. It actually enables the process. By setting even an appropriate AI policy in place that gives the boundaries as well as the runway for individuals to then go and utilize the appropriate tools in the appropriate way, well, then that's where you really start to see a snowball effect of capability. And when you don't do that kind of stuff, you find things like, people will use the tools. They're using it home to plan vacations. They want to use it at work to plan a project. But if you don't set the right rules and enablers in place, then what you find is that people will bring their personal GPTs to work and start throwing company data into the personal GPT. Sounds like, hey, this is a go-getter. We should applaud this person. Not so fast, because the rules, the acceptable use inside of these policies inside of the GPTs tend to, if you're just putting that stuff in a personal account, could be used for training data. I would hate to think somebody put their corporate data in for training data. And then secondly, the response, depending on the GPT, could thereby be owned or seen as IP owned by the GPT itself. So it's kind of a big deal.
And the risk there, of course, is wrong answers. We recently went to a workshop where they rolled their own model that was trained on 2022 data, and they're asking 2025 questions. And it became very clear very quickly that they were getting wrong answers and therefore making wrong strategic decisions and potentially even wrong tactical moves on a quarter-by-quarter basis. That is a clear potential risk. The other one that we were all involved in recently was the risk of a poor architectural decision.
Yeah.
As we know, data by its very nature tends to be a centralized architecture, right? Where there's a data lake and a data warehouse and a lake house, and you integrate, you pipeline those source data into your warehouses and lake houses, so you can use it to derive insights, create a semantic layer, and you have a bunch of consumers to consume sort of that semantic content. But AI by its very nature tends to be decentralized or federated. You don't want to move the data to the model, you want to move the model to the data, right? Use cases need to have a highly discrete function that is likely only looking at a subset or a single source of data to create value, which is why the embedded functions of AI, the ones that exist in the everyday systems, either in your collaboration tool, your CRM, and your ERP, will have a much higher ROI, much more effective to the business, because they're closest to the data, they're closest to the user, they're closest to the process, they're closest to the function, and they already deal with the identity and access management needs of the company holistically. So you have to think of architecture as yet another one of those risks that needs to be considered. It's not just, extend the data warehouse. It's think of it as a program of tools and technologies and architectures versus a single program, technology, and architecture.